Hi. Another wonderful week has gone by, and this week really showed up different aspects of how we each normalize our circumstances or not, which is layered deeply in our own sense of what we feel is a normality, which sometimes can come from overexerting oneself, which then becomes a normality and it costs, or so clear that your normality is so the way to see things that you do not see at all. So the week began with a being who, having done sessions over time and in the past so other orientated, has started to become clear about what's normal for them, which has shaken up the world of others who could assume this generosity and entitlement of behavior from this being. So that's a huge shift, and a joyful one, because it's so clearly seen how it got created in the past and how unseen it was, and in seeing it, being more relaxed and able to hold the space. That followed by a being who also being so caring and taking on a perspective of what their lives are, when it's really not their job, to become really clear about what are my skills, what am I providing, to go further than that to some extent is not your job. Sometimes it's just not your job. You know, beings can take on a whole neighborhood and feel everything about a whole neighborhood. And very often, the sensitivity can feel so much more than those beings themselves are actually even feeling or in touch with. To become the observer with compassion is a gentle art. Then there was the being who came, and today's card that I'll read out is anticipation, the anticipation of what was to come, and it was so clear and in the hand, without a doubt, perfect fit. There was no doubt at all about the whole prospect of what was being moved into. And it showed up that was absolutely true. And then it went to an aspect that says, in the surrender and the calmness of that, allow that which is perfect to take place. It was like, it's in the hands of that which knows best for you. And it did actually turn out the best after the session and what followed, but what they anticipated actually didn't happen. But it was perfect. And the real prize of that was the ability to be calm, which is a form of deep resilience when it doesn't always turn out how we want things to turn out. But to feel the absolute perfection and gift in it, and the calmness and the resilience, it was a real high five. Then someone came in whose thoughts were just awry. They were all over the place, and at the end of the day, not of consequence, but having incredible reactions in the body. That when they were finally seen as useless and not of benefit, just a habit out of having a life that always took in everything, took care of everything, was on top of everything. And now that is not as relevant as we get much older, but the pattern is still there, it does damage to the body, as it may always have done to a large extent. But when the spirit is strong and it's active and it loves to be on top of it all and to be generous and give, but there is a time when that doesn't serve the community anymore, nor yourself. It's just a runaway train that doesn't know how to stop. And by the end it was calm, and we'll see where that goes. Then someone came, and it was interesting because it kind of followed on from last week's sense of where we had, say, an aspect here, and an aspect there. And this can become habituated, and we're stuck in the habit of the pattern. And then to be able to move to this area in terms of the transition to eventually coming to what truly is the relaxed, normal state. So because it got to see that the issue wasn't with the other that was feeling entitled and was taking advantage. In fact, that wasn't happening, even though we would perceive it that way as we look outside. Why is this happening? Why can't this stop? When in fact, the pattern was in the being itself. And there were reasons for why it was holding on to that pattern, and it can be past sense of loss or something happened in the world that loss happened again, which brought about a clinging to the being that then also actually went in connection to soothe, to actually placate that behavior. And as we get clear, there is no loss. A real sense of accepting things as is. Things happen. We lose things. Things shift. Things apparently move away from our life, whether it's beings or things. And to see this too is normal. Then that pattern of holding on in the reaction to it, when that is seen and let go of as all things are there all the time, one way or another, in us, then it can move more into remedying the behavior, knowing that eventually it will correct itself and the normalization will appear. It's an interesting pattern that this is showing up. I'm really enjoying this being able to let go of lifetimes of habits that now become more seen from within rather than the behavior from without, and to, in accountability of what it is to oneself, to be able to work towards what truly is the normality of how you want to live. You know, I see it as a form of homeostasis, because as we move from this very healthy self, being able to observe, allowing others to be who they are and have their own path as you have yours in the creation of what you bring forth, as it becomes adaptive, eventually this homeostasis becomes and alters to this homeostasis. And then in time, as things happen and we compensate further, we end up in in that becoming the homeostasis. And homeostasis really locks in, because it took a lot to let go of that to do that. And then again, that being the norm, it doesn't want to let go of that, but eventually it feels it has to undo that, whether it's with your physical body, your mental body, your emotional body, the behavioral body. It takes seeing to be able to truly let go and come back to more of an original, healthy homeostasis. So that moved to somebody who had made homeostasis an incredibly vast entering into giving oneself to achieve what that vision was that was felt so precious within themselves, and dedicated years, funds, energy, time, commitment, love and passion to it. That when it was at the point of it's already born, but this what is born because you wanted it to be in the world. But the energy, because of all the effort that was given, it went, it's mine. It's like in the Lord of the Rings, it's mine, I'm not going to let it go. And it was so deep, it was actually quite funny when it was recognized, because in doing this, because you wanted to be in the world, to hold possession of it, it doesn't further, and it doesn't actually attract others that will now happily bring it into the world through all the connections. And to let go sometimes is what's needed, because that was the original intent in the first place. And again, that same pattern showed up with the following being that came. And I've written down here, stress to achieve and wanting to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to achieve more. But this pattern of continuously wanting more, and that being so much more than what generally is the pattern for that to be seen was a striving of the internal achievement and progress as it was seen. And what was missed was how that had already been achieved. The box had already been ticked. You've already achieved that. So now, in recognizing the prize of that ability, now can be a joy of moving forward rather than in stress moving forward. Because a gift isn't seen, if a gift isn't seen and we keep striving for the gift to make it even more and more, eventually it's a curse, not a gift. And to see that to some extent this being was even born with this gift, which makes it even more invisible. And relaxing into that as a joy of moving forward with this joy of always expanding and learning, but not with the stress I have to, was really lovely to see. And again, that normalizing, and the more you can feel the normality of ticking the box, the more you can enjoy it. Something to enter into rather than something to strive for, which, the world that has been has really imprinted that, and it has got its value when it comes to many things. I'm not saying it doesn't have value, but when it doesn't have value, it takes away. And then it went to, it sort of shifted, and the last person I saw on the Saturday, it's kind of shifted, and then on Sunday it continued this pathway of being open to not knowing, to in the adventures that were yet to come, to actually be open to the not knowing, but truly trust it rather than go into that adventure with set ways that you feel you are, and how you relate to and how you don't relate to, and then liking it or not liking it. Because part of the adventure of moving forward is the ability to observe how different we all are, let alone places we go to. I mean, that's the beauty of traveling to different cultures, where we can observe with delight how they have normalized a particular culture and how they behave, because we can see it, because it's so different from that which we've been living in. And then to create an openness rather than a set way of behavior that had been experienced in this culture, that in this adventure, this openness, and to be able to see that's normal for them. And also very valuable to, I find that in traveling to different cultures, the value of the depth of that culture, the strength of it. You know, it's like making kefir or other culture processes, the richness and the depth of digestion that a really good culture can bring, and continue to bring health and well-being from it. Cultures have that ability. And then to accept that that is the case with actually each individual, and to be able to appreciate different thoughts, different opinions, different cultures. It's all the same thing, and to see the normality of that. And I've written here, it doesn't have to be the same. You know, the ability to observe others and their different values actually frees oneself and frees others up to be that. And then in capital letters I've written, normality is the prize. So that followed on the following day to a being who I've known since she was in the womb. It's always delightful. And I'm actually sometimes seeing people who then have children themselves that I end up seeing, oh my God, I love it. This being had gone through a separation that was a bit of a shock. And what the Spirit actually said, and sometimes it's hard to actually share what shows up because it doesn't always make sense immediately. And what the Spirit said is, what I want is some low self-esteem. And I thought, right. But in this relationship, this being was holding the relationship together, making things okay, adapting in it, seeing who this being was, and being in charge of this relationship. And what really showed itself, if something inside had said, I don't have to be the one that has the high self-esteem, the one that holds it all together. There is an element in this that you may have experienced as well, I certainly have, where situations have happened in my life, more than my 10 fingers, where I thought, I never thought this would happen to me. I never thought this would be in my situation. And that taking down a peg of this too can happen to me, it allows one to be more aware of being, it's not a sense of humble, but it's a sense of meeting what comes your way rather than thinking these things will never happen to me. And in doing that, I think one becomes more observant and watching what we make okay and whether it really is true, rather than I can handle it, I can stand in it, I'm okay in it because I'm really clear about what I want. So that was an interesting process. And that was followed by somebody where it's actually almost too complex to talk about, so I'm not going to. But complex and beautiful and simple often is. It went into what I can only explain as a being who lives as a vast tornado with this incredibly calm aspect. And I've mentioned before, there are no words there, so these people can be very busy and never know how to stop. And it's said that what it wanted for this being was hopelessness. And it was a little bit like low, what I want you to have is a little bit more low self-esteem, a little bit more hopelessness, because this being had no stopping point, and it had to see that how hopeless it felt not to be able to stop. And in seeing how hopeless it was that you're not able to stop, you actually then bring the hope in to be able to stop. Make sense of that. And again, there was a great calmness that was felt in the room by this being and their partner. So we are all dreamers. We are all part of this dreaming. And, people often say it's an assimilation. And I might not argue with that, but to me, that's not the point. The point is through that aspect of who we are, through that can meet and experience itself. And that's the value. I've written here, we are the dreamers. The bottle that came up today, the essence that came up today was placebo. And placebo is watch how you see things and label what your part in it is. It's all there for you. It's a gift regardless of the experience. Each experience contributes to the whole as you, in the connection to it and how you meet it, adds the information to the collective of how we each can bring out the best of us. And if that takes an assimilation in some form for us to bring out and to do more and more of that collectively, so as a whole we journey towards an evolutionary process, that's incredible. So anticipation was the card. Anticipation creates a feeling of excitement. Hold that feeling of anticipation as you embark on your next course of action. Unusual occurrences may not be anticipated, but don't waste any time worrying about it. Let go of expectations. They only take you out of the now moment. When you anticipate, you can enjoy the fun of the whole journey, right here and now. That's what showed up. Let's see where it goes next week. Much love and joy to you all.